And we're live. Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to the Mojo Show, your real estate podcast where we talk about everything real estate. I'm your host, Joe Mortgage, and that empty chair that you're seeing there is usually Cup of Joe Mortgage, but of course he had to go get his Cup of Joe, so he'll be right
God,
back.
I'm sorry. You're
What a great way to come back to our show.
I'm used to us always being a little bit behind on the start, so I guess the new system is updating quicker than I thought.
Well, this week's episode, we are busting up some more mortgage myths that are out there. Yes, we know your uncle's neighbor's cousin's second twice removed, gave you some great advice. At least that's what you thought it was back in the they bought their last home back in the 1900s and gave you some great advice, but we're here to set the record straight on pre-qualifications and pre-approvals today. But before we get to that, now that you've got your coffee, we'll have jump into our coffee talk today. But before we do, I want to just officially apologize to all of our listeners out there, both of them. For the past 5 weeks, or has it been 6 weeks?
It was the week of your wedding. Was the last show was the week before,
right?
So,
and we told everybody we'd be off for 2 weeks. Here it ended up being like 5 or 6 weeks. I do apologize because it's really my fault, to be honest with you. I was off, of course, got married, had the whole honeymoon thing. It was wonderful and truly enjoyed it. It was a beautiful wedding, which, Joe, thank you again so much for coming down and being there at the wedding. That was awesome to have you there. But I ended up getting sick on my honeymoon.
I swear, every time you travel, you get sick.
It seems like it, right? My immune system must be really... Anyway, so I come back and I'm just like, I'm going to the doctor several times and, can't get out of bed, all this stuff. So finally, here I am today, able to be vertical, at least, and able to do the show. So my apologies to both of our listeners out there, anyone else tuning in as well. But coffee talk, let's jump into coffee talk. We haven't had our coffee talk in a while, but so here's why do we have to have this time change thing? Am I the only one that looks at it and goes, do we really need this? I mean, this is stupid.
So I don't know anymore if we need it. I don't want to be one that talks about it because, the changing of it does not affect my job, nor does it affect my daily life. It's just a nuisance. And I think that's where people are getting more irritated because of nuisances. But the people that I mean, from history and everything else, and I'm not a history buff, so any of our listeners or anybody on here, please correct me. But I thought it was for the farmers and the manufacturer workers and things like that. So that way, when they, in the wintertime, you had shorter days, so they were getting more sleep because in the summertime, they needed the longer days for growth, work, school, and stuff like that for the kids. I don't know if that's true. That's just what my dad told me a long time ago. So I don't know. I would love if any of our listeners are farmers or any of our listeners are, that the daylight savings time does affect or helps your job. I would love anybody to make comments about that because I would love to know the true reasoning why people would want to keep it versus the nuisance that everybody just gets annoyed by. Because like right now, our team lead processors in Arizona, well, they went from being an hour behind us. Now she's 2 hours behind us.
Yeah.
So, which is really good because when it's 6 o'clock here, it's only 4 o'clock there. So I can still bug her. But when it's 8 o'clock in the morning here, she doesn't want me calling her at 6 in the morning there.
Her phone's going off and she's laying in bed. Yeah, I'm sure.
Crystal's a wonderful person, and we're gonna have her on show. But with that, she doesn't like my calls at 6 o'clock in the morning. She's worked with me since 2014, so it's been over 10 years. She gets used to it sometimes.
Oh my! Well, drop comments in. Do you mind the time change? I mean, for me, it messes me up for like a week. Right? It takes me about a week to adjust, especially the spring one. The fall one's not so bad. You fall back, you get an extra hour of sleep. I mean, I won't complain about that one, right? but
And that's the one that I don't like.
that's what
Because all of a sudden I lose an hour of daylight somewhere. Because it's earlier in the morning. I want it at night. I liked going home at 6:30 last night and the sun's out. That made my drive home so much nicer.
Yes, I do agree. I will agree with that. I have a hard time adjusting to it's almost like jet lag in a way, right?
It takes you a little while to get over it.
Yeah, it takes me a little bit to get over it, but
well, I know we have a heck of a show today, and I'm excited to get into this. One of the things, guys, is make sure you are dropping questions, comments, anything in there, because Joe and I want to answer these. I'm going to let Joe do the intro into the next thing, but we're excited about bringing the next 2 months to the end of April. Sorry, a month and a half to you on this topic, and I'm excited about it because this is where my passion is, and you know that, Joe. So
yes,
please drop in comments. Feel free to ask questions, or even call us out if you think we're wrong on something. I would love for that, because I'm never right, my wife says, but I always tell my kids I'm never wrong. So we'll see where this comes up.
Well, and here's the thing: from the last show that we did of busting, mortgage myths, we really focused on the myth of having 20% down, right? And from that just spawned, it was like opening a can of worms, all these different myths that are out there. And in making a list of all of them, it's like, wow, if we cover all of these, it's going to take us till the end of April of doing shows every week to be able to cover all these myths. That's how many myths that are out there and that we need to debunk, if you will, bust them open for you so that you, the community that are out there looking to purchase a home, even if you're current homeowners, that you can actually take advantage of some of this knowledge. And I hope that you do, because that's why Joe and I do this, is to be able to extend that knowledge out there for you homeowners and those that want to be homeowners. So as Joe said, drop questions in. Today, we're talking about pre-qualified versus pre-approved, because there are definitely some myths out there about this. And I know you wanted to play a little bit of game this morning with me on this, Joe. So I'll go ahead, even though I don't like taking questions. You love giving them and trying to stump me, but I'll be the guinea pig here and go ahead.
I love it. All right. So the first question, I'll give it to you easy because you kind of already said it. Right. Pre-qualified and pre-approved mean the same thing. True or false?
That is false. That is a huge false. There's so much difference between those two. So
yeah, we'll get it. We're going to get into those differences, but I love it when we have loan originators that in our industry that don't really know the differences between these two. So I'm glad we're talking about that today on our list. But question number 2 for you, Joe. Does a pre-approval guarantee that you're going to get that loan? True or false?
No, it doesn't. So false. No, it does not guarantee it.
But Joe, you pre-approved me. You pre-approved me. Why can't I get pre-approved for that loan, right?
Right.
There are a lot of things, and I know we're going to talk about that too, but that is another myth. It is not a guarantee. All right, let's keep going. I don't need a pre-approval until I find a house. True or false?
That is a false. As soon as the pre-approval, right, is like your Willy Wonka golden ticket, right? That really, that's the golden ticket for you to be able to start shopping. I mean, why would you go to the mall if you don't have cash or a credit card?
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
that I have never heard that before, and it just like resonated with me. A pre-approval is your golden ticket to get you inside the tour, right? Yep. Just like the golden ticket didn't win them the prize, but it got them into the tour.
Absolutely.
Yep. Now you go through a lot of houses, and some of them you're going to throw away, kind of like some of those kids got pushed away, and then you'll find that one house that is the one that you're wanting, and that's the winner. So, are you Charlie? It's going to be the question. Is that house your Charlie?
Yep, absolutely.
I love that. That I'm going to use that one. Thank you for that reference.
Sure.
Now that I'm going to go off topic because before we go to the next question. Okay. Now, are you the old school Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, or the new one, or excuse me, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate
Mhm.
Factory, or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which was the newer one.
Now I have to
Johnny
admit,
Depp.
I still have not seen the newest one with oh man, what is it? Why
Johnny
can't I
Depp.
think? Yeah, Johnny
Yeah,
Depp in it.
yeah.
Of course, great actor. He's done a lot of great movies and stuff. I still have not seen that one.
I will say, and I know it's off topic, but the animation and things that they do with that one and the technology, it was a really good one. But I still prefer the old school one. Just
Yeah, yeah.
the singing is a little old school still, but I still love that one. So besides the one part where the mom's singing "Dear Charlie," that one just, I could do away with that scene. All right, going on to question number 4.
Okay.
A pre-approval, will it hurt my credit? Or no, excuse me, let me rephrase. A pre-approval will hurt my credit. True or false?
Yes and no. See, it's kind of a true and false. It depends on the loan officer that you're working with. Now, I know you and I, Joe, will do a soft credit pull up front, right? Which does not hurt. It doesn't ding your credit, and that's one of the main reasons why we do it. We can talk about that further. But if you're working with the loan officer that they push and do a hard credit pull, boom, right out of the gate, that is going to ding your credit. Now, granted, it's only going to be like 5, 6, 7 points. People think that it dings it for like 20 points or something.
Yeah.
That's not the case, right? 5, 6, maybe 7 points, right? So it doesn't really. And even if you do have it pulled, you've got 30 or 45 days that you can.
It's usually within the first 15 days after you've actually had a hard pull credit where it doesn't affect. Right. And then after up to 30 days, it's very minimal.
Yeah.
But that's one thing on like Credit Karma. People look at Credit Karma all the time, right? And it's a good tool to understanding credit, but it's not a good tool to say that's my FICO score, because there's so many different things out there, and that's a myth in its own to think that there's one credit calculation. But the one thing that I would say on Credit Karma, if you read on it, and it shows you what are things that truly hurt your score, like high impact, and what are low impact. Well, having your credit pulled is a low impact. So if you don't have your credit pulled a lot and you're not doing credit cards and stuff like that, that impact is very low. So it might not change your score at all the first couple of times. But if you're that type of person that's having every time you go to a department store, you're trying to save that 20%, that 30%, and you have them pull your credit, or you have them, you get another credit card, and you're doing that consistently, that pull could hurt your credit even more than somebody that, like myself, I don't have my credit pulled hardly ever. So if I go to shop for a car, if I go to shop for a house, I can have my credit pulled 2 or 3 times to where it's not going to affect my score like it would somebody that's getting those credit cards or having their credit checked all the time.
And if you want to learn more about all of this, we did a podcast like about a year ago with Brian Quinn. Go to our YouTube channel at the Mojo Show Real Estate Podcast on YouTube, and you'll be able to find the episode. And download it, listen to it, what have you. Really, Brian went through some great stuff in there about credit. That's a good one to go back and listen to, definitely.
Well, and while we already got it up, and make sure when you go there to like and subscribe, which we'll say that again at the end of the show, because we need the subscriptions, and we would love to get you guys to watch some more of those podcasts.
Absolutely. So now are the questions done? Do we get to?
That was all my questions, Joe. You passed the test, and I would appreciate you saying the one at the end the way that you did, because a lot of people will say, "Oh, it's true." Well, it's not always true. So, that one was kind of you could answer both of those. I should have made that one multiple choice versus true, false. It should have been all of the above. So,
well, we'll get with the writers on the show and complain to them about it.
Oh, man.
Well, let's dive into how about the differences between the two of them, between a pre-qual and a pre-approval. So a pre-qualification is what? How would you describe a pre-qualification? I mean, in a basic form, what is it?
So back, I mean, I've been doing this for going on 25 years now, right? So when we used to do applications, they were mainly paper applications, or we took them over the phone, and now people do them over the internet. And systems have caught up so much. But a pre-qualification was basically, I got your application, I pulled your credit, I made sure that, based on the income you told me, right? Based on the assets you told me, and based on the credit after I pulled it, can I make a loan work for you? And that was a pre-qualification, because I'm pre-qualifying you, but I don't have any of the meat on it to truly see that information that you provided on the application. So that is a pre-qualification. And people say, oh, I look at income, I look at this, yeah, you can look at that stuff too, but until you have the whole file together, it's still a pre-qualification. And, in my opinion, I could be wrong. And if there's people listening that disagree, but a pre-qualification to me is, please throw it in the comments, is I basically took your information from your word, and I worked up a loan without checking the documentation.
So I guess what I'm hearing you say is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, which I know you'll do, but so
well, I think it might be different for each one of us. So what is a pre-qualification to you instead of going that route? Let's
to me,
see how it differs.
It's almost like you're basically saying, yes, you qualify to apply for a mortgage.
Okay.
Is what you're doing. I have no documentation from you. I don't have pay stubs, W-2s. I don't have even a copy of your driver's license to verify who you are, right? I maybe haven't even done a credit pull, not even a soft credit pull, right? So it's very limited because it's more self-reporting type information. When I say self-reporting, not me, but you, the consumer, is reporting to me, you make this much money a year, right? Yeah. And here's who you work for, and you've lived at this place for this amount of time, and here's my name, and blah blah blah. It's just nothing is verified.
Yeah,
is what it comes down to. Nothing is verified.
Now here's a good one on that. Can you actually pre-approve somebody with a soft pull credit?
Pre-approval, I will tell you, yes, I have. Okay. And depending upon the situation, I don't mind. Look, if somebody's got like a 746 credit score and I've got all their documents, right, and I've done a soft pull to see, really what not only what their credit looks like, but their liabilities, right? Because that's probably one of the most important things when we do a credit pull. Yes, your credit score is very important, but the liabilities is what's really key and important to us that we look at, right? So I'm going to say yes on that, Joe.
Yeah. So I think it depends on your experience as a loan originator on doing a soft pull. Now, I do know some of our investors, and I'm not going to say the names, but some of our investors allow us to input that soft pull credit in their system and run AUS. So yes, you can actually do a pre-approval. But I agree with you, Joe. With our experience, if I'm looking at that file, I know what fits in the box.
Right.
And if it fits in that box with all the experience we have, then they're pre-approved. The only thing I haven't done is run the automated underwriting.
Right.
And, so I will do pre-approvals based on that when they're shopping, but then I will do that hard pull before we make an offer.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the promises I do to my agents, but also to all you listing agents out there. Having the knowledge of a hard pull at that point and having a true automated underwriting decision because they're ready to make an offer, that makes that offer a lot stronger. No, it's still not a guarantee because there's other things out there. But having that hard pull at that time, that's when I will do it, is when we're ready to make that offer. Just so that way I know they're close. I know we're trying to close within the next 90 days. Even if they don't get that house. So that's where I think the biggest difference is from a pre-qualification and pre-approval is what we're talking about on documentation, right? And things like that. So kind of go ahead.
And as you and I are brokers, right? So those of you out there that don't know what that is, a broker we're not what's also referred to as a retail lender. You have retail and you have a broker. So retail is going to be like the bank down the street or one of these big box lenders. As a broker, Joe and I have got over 20 different lenders, right? So, and that's great because everyone's situation is different.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not having just one lender to, one size fits all try to make, right?
Right.
So when we do have a credit, when we do a soft credit pull and it's questionable, that's when we really want to do a hard credit pull. And even from there, sometimes we want to be able to take that information and give it to the lender, right? And have their underwriters look it over to say, yay or nay on it, right? Before we actually proceed forward with things. So it just kind of depends upon the level of that. At least I feel, Joe, I think you've done as well, as far as, sending a file to a lender and say, hey, can we overcome this?
Yep.
Before I submit the pre-approval letter to the client and the realtor, can we get over this hump?
Well, we just had, so we did a training yesterday, and Andrew Penzon, which is one of our sales team leads down in San Antonio, he went over the challenges of overcoming variable income. And one of the things he brought up yesterday is he had a traveling nurse under a year on the job. Previous job, she wasn't a traveling nurse. And he did an awesome job of putting everything together, showing the income the way it needed to be done. But he sent that into the underwriters at two of our investors prior to giving them a pre-approval, prior to them shopping for a house, and got them to sign off on the income. So that's what you're kind of talking about, is he took it a step further. And that's the awesome thing about a good loan originator versus one that is going to sit back and just be like, oh, yeah, I know we're good. Something like that is too far out there to say you're pre-approved based on something like that, because we don't have the timing that's needed for that income. So, it really, really shows if you're working with the right person. I don't care if you're in retail, a loan originator, or a broker, or loan originator. If you're working with the right person and they do that extra step, it might take you another 2 weeks before you can go shop for a house. But when you go shop for a house, you're not worried about, oh, I'm putting this earnest money out there and they still haven't figured out my income.
And realtors, if there's any realtors out there listening right now, drop in the comments. Do you prefer, does it matter to you? When you put an offer in, because Grant, your name's on that offer, right? Do you mind having a pre-qual? Or do you draw the line with your clients and say, no, I need a pre-approval so that I can put you in the best position when I put an offer in? If you realtors out there, if you're listening, drop something, comments, and I'd love to hear more what you're thinking on this, to know, Grant, Joe and I have been doing this a long time, but we want to make sure that we're providing you with what is needed. But Joe, let me ask, so then pre-approvals, I guess what we're saying essentially is that these are more researched, if you will, formal underwrite process, if you will, than a pre-qual.
Yeah, I look at pre-approvals from a stance of, if you've sent me all your documents, your assets, your income, driver's license, if you've divorced and you're paying child support, I got a divorce decree. These are all things that I'm going to be asking for when we go through the numbers and all that stuff. And if I have your income and I already have your assets, or I know where they're coming from, then I'm going to go ahead and say you're pre-approved based on that information, because I was able to look at it. I was able to calculate your income. If you're self-employed, this is one's huge. If you're self-employed and you have a lender that is giving you a pre-approval before they've asked you for tax returns, fire that lender.
Yes.
Fire them right now. Call Joe Reams if you're in the Houston area. Call Joe Bartram if you're in the DFW area, because you're with the wrong lender. Self-employed people, which that's another myth that we're going to talk about another time. But you have to provide those tax returns so we can truly calculate your income. I have a client right now that we're still waiting on one last thing to finish up in his transcripts, waiting for the IRS to send them so we can get the clear to close and be done. So some of those things take time that are out of our control. So getting that stuff up front and understanding it is huge. So Joe, I'm going to ask the next question, right? I know we're running into time here, but
that's all right.
When should a client get pre-approved?
So I would the best answer is as soon as possible. And if you are looking to, for instance, we're in March right now. Excuse me. So if you're looking to buy in the spring, you should have already gotten pre-approved.
Yep.
Right. Honestly, if you are one that you're looking to buy maybe later in the fall or end of the year, I would honestly tell you, look at getting pre-approved now. And
Yep.
here's the reason why. I know it may be 6 months, 8, 9 months ahead of time. But when we do a soft credit pull, you and I, Joe, have seen it so many times. There's things there on the report that the person didn't even know about, right? That is dragging their score down, right?
Yep.
That isn't showing up on Credit Karma or what have you, right? Because the scoring is so different. So getting yourself, and if we wait until the fall to try to pre-approve you, and those things are there, then you may have to wait another 6 months, right, to clear those things up, those items up. So let's take a look at it now and make sure that you're in the best position now, because maybe your score right now is a 692. Well, what can we do between now and the fall over the next 6 months to get that up, maybe to a 720? Because there's a big difference in pricing of interest rates, right, between those. So let's plan ahead. Let's be prudent and plan ahead on this, so that you're in the right position financially for that home when it's your time.
Yeah. And one of the things that a lot of clients are like, well, if I give documents now and I'm not looking for a house until October, I'm just going to have to give documents again. So do you need documents? Yes. If we really want to know when October's coming and we truly build out a buying process and a plan for you, we need those documents. And yes, you're going to have to upload new pay stubs, new bank statements when it's that time. But what happens if you're looking at a house and all of a sudden you see that house that you really want and you didn't do that part up front and it's before October? Because how many times does that happen? I get clients all the time. Oh, my lease isn't up until June.
Yeah.
But I want to buy a house, but I want to close in June. And all of a sudden it's January and they're like, hey, we want to put an offer in.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Because they found the right house.
But if we didn't do that part up front, now I'm behind.
Right.
I'm sorry about to sneeze. So
no, that's okay. So and you're right, because it happens so many times. It's like, well, how soon are you looking to purchase a home? Well, probably 3-4 months from now. So it's not that I'm not in a big rush and everything. Get them pre-approved. Sure enough, within a week or a couple of days. Oh, I found the great home. I found the one, right? The dream home. Want to put an offer in. Yep.
And I'm doing a soft pull on those. And, until they're ready to make an offer. And that's where the true difference between somebody that knows what they're doing, they're not hurting your credit that far out until you're ready to make an offer.
Right.
And
so there's no need to.
Right. Because you're going to have to pull credit again, because credits are only good for, yes, they're 120 days. And anybody that tells you 120, they should also remind you that we need to close in 90, because we need that other 30 days to really give the lender time to process it and securitize it. And that's why they want it done in 90.
Yes.
So
exactly.
But I think this myth today, between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval, Joe, that is a big one that people have a misunderstanding. If you're selling your house and you're looking at these offers, you need to ask your agent, hey, I see pre-approval on this. Have you talked to that lender? Because I call my listing agents when we put in an offer, introduce myself, and if I can't, a video goes along with my pre-approval letter on what I've already done and what I've looked at and how we actually got a pre-approval, versus just, hey, here's a pre-approval letter and you don't know if they actually did anything.
Right. So yeah, great advice. If you are listing your home, talk to the realtor that you have listing it and make sure that they are truly accepting pre-approvals, not pre-quals, and even is the realtor talking to that loan officer about it, to know the strength of it, right? Are there any red flags that we see, in going into this with us pre-approval?
And we're not talking about this myth, but local lender versus over the internet lender. I'm local to DFW, but I do loans in Nebraska, but I'm just as good as a local lender in Nebraska because I know what I'm doing. I do everything over video. So, knowing that you're working with somebody that has experience is better than, they're local. So just make sure you're looking for that too.
Just like I'm from, originally from Michigan. I'm still licensed in Michigan. I know Michigan like the back of my hand, right?
Yep.
So it's basically just like being there, if you will, as far as being.
Well, Joe, it felt good to get a show in again. I really appreciate you doing this, and thanks for calling me out yesterday. I love you for that too.
Oh yeah, okay, I'm sure you do. Yeah, push them buttons, but
that's right. You got to.
If any of you have any addition, because we do need to wrap up the show, we are at the end. So if you have any additional questions about getting pre-approved, right? Reach out to Joe or I. Email addresses are down there at the bottom, along the bottom there. Any questions that you have, whether you're looking to get pre-approved or buy a home a year from now or next week, reach out to us. We'd be glad to help and answer any questions that you may have on that. Next week, we're going to continue on our series of busting mortgage myths because there is so many of them out there. So tune in next week at our usual time, Wednesday mornings, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. Joe, should we tell them what the next myth is that we're going to cover, or just leave them with a cliffhanger?
You know what? I don't like cliffhangers because I want people to be prepared to come with questions and comments for next week. So let's give them the myth so that way they can be prepared to try to boggle our minds with those questions.
So next week, we're going to focus on the myth. The best loan is always the one with the lowest interest rate. Ooh, good myth right there. I like that one. We're going to cover good content there. All right. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Both of you that did. We do appreciate. If you know of anyone who might be able to glean from what we've covered today, or if you want to catch up on some of our past episodes, go to our YouTube channel, the Mojo Show Real Estate Podcast on our YouTube channel. And while you're there, of course, hit the subscribe button because we are on a mission to get to 1,000 subscribers. And keep in mind, every like, comment, and share, it helps us reach more home buyers just like you. So be sure and pass that along. Before we close out, any last words or nuggets of advice for our listeners, Joe?
Just make sure you're talking with the right people, have the right team, and your loan will go smooth.
And get pre-approved.
That's right.
I'm Joe Mortgage, and that handsome guy with the beard is Cup of Joe Mortgage, and we'll see you next week. Myth